Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Connecting the Dots. Joining me on this one is Lisa Greensill, a marketing specialist based near Byron Bay in New South Wales, Australia. Far more exotic than where I live in Liverpool, England, but never mind. She's here to explain why you need brand messaging before copywriting. Lisa, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Neil. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's so cool that we can do this. We were just talking about this before we hit record, but yeah, the fact that I can talk to someone in Australia where it's currently 5:42 in the morning is pretty amazing.
It is, isn't it? I love it.
Yeah. So we'll start with the usual question, Lisa. What is your story and how did you get to the point in your career that you're at now?
Well, now I did the usual, the uni thing, got a graduate job. This was a very, very long time ago. That was in the tech industry, actually. And I did a bit of a stint in the UK for a bit in Brighton, working for an e-learning company. When I came back from that backpacking trip, I found myself in big financial advice business, big financial services business. And that kind of led me down the path to then, and in marketing roles always, it led me down the path to working for a financial advisor where I was the brand manager there was going on about 6 years. Had the kids and moved to the coast where working from home wasn't really a thing then. So though the company I worked for was super supportive about me doing a bit of work from home, it just I think my cousin died at the age of 50 and I wasn't loving what I was doing. So I left, and that's how I ended up freelancing. So I never, ever, ever, ever in my wildest dreams when I was younger would have thought that I would go into business for myself. I didn't think it was in my DNA, but I found myself accidentally out there in freelancing world. And you know how it is, you sort of, someone hears that you're freelancing and then you get a bit of work here and a bit of work there. I did that for about 10 years and then hit the big 40 and said, and I just knew I had more to offer. Felt like I kind of wasn't reaching my potential. I'm pretty sure it's a common thing for people that hit their 40s. So I went out kind of on this professional development journey, just kind of trying to work out what it is, what is my thing within the marketing world, because it's such a huge, it's like there's so many pieces to the puzzle. And I was very much a Jill of all trades. So I could do bits of this and bits of that, but I didn't feel like I was amazing at anything. So I ended up looking into all these different things. And then I found StoryBrand. A client actually introduced me to it. And it was literally like, I don't know, my eyes lit up straight away. And I just was like gobbling up all the information about it, because it just was this perfect framework. And for me, it was a bit of a missing piece because, interestingly enough, I always found the writing part of marketing really hard, which seems ironic considering where I now find myself. But anyway, I then ended up, um, it was during Corona, it was during COVID, and I ended up it was perfect because prior to that, you had to actually fly to America to do the whole certification. But because of COVID, you could do it online.
Yeah.
So I became a certified story brand guide. So I did this because of where I am, I had to do like it was 2 overnights here in my office.
Yeah.
So I could do it live streaming with the US. So I did that, and that it really just opened up a lot of doors for me. I officially then launched my consulting business, lisagreensill.com, and working with financial advisors. And then it was about last January, I launched Brandover, which is a brand and message makeover business with a graphic designer. So, and I focus on the word side of it. So it's been like it's been I really don't like the word journey, but it's been an experience and always learning. But I love this little part of the marketing world that I get to work in now.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like a real baptism of fire, to use a cliche phrase. And I think that, what I love about your story, and it's similar to some other stories that I've heard before, is that you've perhaps you've perhaps disproven ideas that you even had about yourself. You know, when you mentioned earlier about you didn't see yourself as a business owner. In fact, one of the things you didn't like initially was the writing aspect, which now is what you specialize in. It's just amazing the directions that life can take you down, or that you can carve out for yourself.
I love, yeah, I've got goosebumps. It's so true. And I think I I had that whole, I felt lost. I see people now, and I did really feel lost in my career. And, you hit 40 and you think, oh, well, that's pretty old. But then now I feel like I'm just getting started, and I am just really excited. And just the possibilities open up. I think we've all kind of got this imaginary ceiling that we put on ourselves. And it's once you start sort of going out there and seeing, and I always thought everything had to be perfect, like in doing business and things like that. Like you had to have everything ready, and just so many things have changed in how I think now. Like it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to have everything perfect before you launch a service. Like you can, like I see more of what we do in business is like experiments. Like we're experimenting to see if this works.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if it does, then that's great. We keep building on that.
Mhm. And you must like have to do a lot of experiments day to day, which I guess we'll come on to. But like, especially with the complexity of the industry that you're working in now, financial advisors, that to me seems like an amazing niche to have found. And it's probably not the first one that people would think of either. So kudos to you really for landing on your feet with that one.
Thanks. Yeah, people do say, why on earth do you work with financial advisors? And it's so interesting because to me, I've been working in the industry. Okay, so it's going on, it's 20 years next year. So it's like 19 and a half years I've been in the financial advice industry here in Australia. And it's, um, it's progressed a lot, but it's still behind a lot of industries in a lot of ways. So, and particularly in a marketing and messaging.
Yeah.
It's a really misunderstood industry. So it's a great place to be. And I'm fascinated by money, the emotions behind money and the psychology of money, which is really what financial advice is about. Technical, it's not about the technical stuff when you're talking about messaging.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, let's talk about that then. Let's dive into that a little bit more, like the emotion and the psychology behind money, because I'm really fascinated by that. And I guess I want to find out how the brand messaging ties into that. So I'm asking multiple questions in one. It's a classic interview technique. It's probably not the most effective, but I guess my questions are kind of how do you convey that emotion through the brand messaging and kind of get to the heart of the psychology behind money? And I guess the other question I've got is like, what are some of the brand messaging mistakes that you see people make in the financial advice industry?
Okay, so in relation to how I get to the emotions and bring that out in the messaging, it's all around with the financial advisors that we work with. I like workshop them for a couple of hours, just trying to get into their head and asking them questions around, you know, why people come to see them in the first place. What are the problems that keep them awake at night? What is it they're actually trying to achieve? Because people don't wake up in the middle of the night and say, oh, geez, I hope that my investments in my super are invested in the right asset class. Like they just don't do that. People are thinking about how they're going to fund their kids' education. They're even thinking about what am I going to do, like older people, what am I going to do when I don't work every day? So it's got literally actually some of that stuff's got nothing to do with money. It's got to do with time. So really we really want to pull out how, what is it that's really motivating people to want to take control of their money. I've got do you mind if there's this
Yeah, of course.
book.
Yeah,
So I might have to take it. Can you see that?
I can see the title
It's
now. Yeah, the
called,
psychology of money. Yeah,
yes, Psychology of Money. It's by Morgan Housel, and it's uh it's it's brilliant. There's like, I've got it highlighted all the way through, and it's just like one of the things it says in here is like people do some crazy things with money, but no one is crazy. Here's the thing:
Yeah.
people from different generations, raised by different parents, earning different incomes, held different values in different parts of the world, born in different economies, experiencing different job markets with different incentives and different degrees of luck, learn very different lessons. So what it's about is how we all feel about money is really driven by how we grew up and the lessons we learned from that. And we're all really different, but some of us share kind of similarities around, how we spend, what's important to us. So that's really what I'm trying to understand from the advisors that I work with, is for their clients, the ones they really want to work with, what's important to them. Because for some people it might be family, but for some people it might be status, it might be ego, it might be their businesses. So it's just trying to understand that. And then what was the second question you asked? This is the problem
The
with
second
asking me
question
two
was just,
questions.
yeah, no, it was just around the common brand messaging mistakes that you think
Yes,
companies are making, or perhaps opportunities that they're missing in regards to their brand messaging.
I think the big mistake people are making now is kind of pumping stuff directly out of ChatGPT, which is, we can talk about that, but there's nothing, like, I use ChatGPT, but I think the issue with that is, so people are missing that kind of next level of in the copy. So there's kind of like this base level, just say what you're trying to say, but then I find that where the magic happens is those stories that relate, help people kind of visualize themselves. So it's the personal stories, it's the client stories, it's the analogies. So I think the big thing people miss is that they miss the stories, they miss the analogies, they miss the opportunity to really help people see themselves and connect more with the words.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Like kind of the lived experience, basically, and how that manifests itself through the messaging, and it can resonate with so many people if they've had a similar experience themselves.
Correct. It's the resonance, I think, without that next level, and really, I guess, and I guess the specificity of it as well. So making sure that what you're saying actually is relating to someone and not trying to be relating to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so just for the uninitiated and in the broadest terms possible, not specific to the niche you work in, but generally speaking, what is brand messaging? And I feel like I'm kind of putting you on the spot with that question, but like if you had to define it in a few sentences, what would you say that brand messaging is at its core?
Yeah, it's tricky to explain, isn't it? I always say, I'm explaining the difference between brand messaging and copywriting. I find that brand messaging is working out what is it that you're trying to say and who are you trying to say it to, in what kind of way. And then the copywriting is, okay, how are you actually saying it? What are the final words that you're going to use to get that point across?
Yeah, yeah,
So it's really like it's kind of a two-part. I always find it's two parts to it. It's like, what am I trying to say and who am I trying to say it to? What's the tone I want to say it in? That's the kind of, it's kind of the key point and the key points.
yeah,
So I guess it's like the bones that's keeping it, or the scaffolding that's keeping it, the DNA and scaffolding of the final words that come out.
yeah,
Does
yeah.
that
No,
make sense?
no, it does. We're actually going to come on to talk about that in a bit more detail as well. So that's a nice teaser for the main question.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it definitely does make sense. I think. And to be honest, I think a lot of the notes that I had written here, you've actually covered off a lot of this anyway. So it was things like some of the biggest challenges your clients have when it comes to their brand messaging. Maybe I want to go into this a bit more actually, because I got a sense for some of the pain points that you solve by reading your LinkedIn bio. I had a look at that earlier. But for the people who haven't read it yet, I'm sure they will when they connect with you after this episode. What are some of the challenges that you help people overcome, or some of the pain points, to use a classic marketing term, when it comes to their brand messaging?
Yeah, so the biggest one is that curse of knowledge. So getting with technicians, which I am, which you are, which financial advisors are, they get stuck in the weeds in the technicalities of what they do. I do it too. So that's the biggest one. They find it hard to articulate what they do in a way that is client friendly.
Mm.
The other one is they tend to do, it's kind of, I call it random acts of marketing, but you could call it random acts of messaging, but it's just kind of throwing stuff out there without any strategy behind it. So sending newsletters out that are just kind of noisy and not really any plan behind them. They're not really speaking to everyone. Um, and yeah, the other one is that they tend to be very general in what they're saying. So they speak to everyone, which kind of means that the message falls flat and speaks to no one.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, it's funny you say that because the guest on my last podcast, Jenny Green, so she works at an advertising agency, and the podcast was all about LinkedIn ads for small businesses. And she says that early on in the relationship, when they're asking questions to the client, and the client will say, who am I trying to target? Yeah, everyone. And then it's like
Yeah.
we maybe need you to be a little bit more specific than that. So
Yes, totally. And you can see like the advisor's eyes light up when they start to actually, because I will usually profile three clients with them. And then you can, they do actually work with like more specific types of clients than everyone. Like they really do. It's just they hadn't kind of realized it because they're in it every day. You kind of can't see the label, in the jam jar, you can't see what's on the label.
yeah, yeah, I agree. I think there's more to explore in this. So I want to follow up with a question I just thought of actually. So what would you say are like the most fundamental components of a brand messaging strategy would be the right, or campaign? The brand messaging strategy would probably be the better word. So
Yep.
what would you say are the key components? Like if you had to pick, I don't know, 5 to 10, let's say, as an arbitrary number, what would you say are the key components of any brand messaging strategy?
Yeah, well, before I take on any like, website copy or newsletter or any kind of project, I'll always be like, who is it that we're speaking to? What are the, key problems that these people are experiencing? You know, what what is it that they what is it that they ultimately want? Like what are they trying to get out of what from working with you? So it's like, who are they? What do they actually want? What problems are getting in the way? How are they feeling about it? And that question's always tricky for people to answer because it feels really it, people find it hard to actually explain the feelings. So then it's once you've worked out what the problems are, it's okay, well, why are you, as the expert, the right people to help them solve those problems? So, what are the key kind of criteria in your business that make you the expert out of everybody else? And this is kind of like what sets you apart, what's your point of difference, that type of stuff. And what is it that, how are you actually going to help them? Like, what are the services or the experience, or like, how are you actually going to help them solve those problems? And what does success look like if they
Mm.
do work for you?
Yeah.
And what is the failure you're going to help them avoid? And then I always like to say, okay, what's the transformation like? Where were they when they found, like, what's the transformation they can expect? Like, they're here now after working with you. Like, for financial advisors, you generally need to work with one for at least a year, but multiple years, really. Like, what's the transformation they're going to experience by the end of it?
Yeah.
And it's kind of that's trying to create that visual. So it's really the key parts. And I got that from that's basically the story brand
Yeah.
framework. It's a bit of a filter. So it's literally just dot points. And
Mm.
then it can kind of, from that, you can kind of flesh out all everything from that, any kind of copy from that.
I feel like, going back to something you said at the start of your answer, the point of difference feels to me like the most difficult thing to define. Like a lot of people will talk about what they think their point of difference is, but then if they all say they have
Yes.
the same point of difference in effect, then is it a point of difference? Because if they're all saying it, then it kind of doesn't feel like it is. I mean, like for example, with me, I struggled with that at the start because I was like, well, I'm a storyteller. And they were like, people that I spoke to were like, yeah, but loads of copywriters say that. I see myself more as a sort of like a journalist turned copywriter now. So I use my journalism skills and a lot of things like, so when I do the discovery call with clients, I treat it as a podcast. So actually, if you were a client, I would be doing exactly the same thing as I'm doing now. It might be slightly more conversational, but I don't really think it would be that different. So I always say to people,
Yes.
well, in the age of AI, what can I do that AI cannot do? Ask the right questions and then ask the right follow-up questions by listening to what you have to say, circling back to something you said, expand
Yes.
that and growing it. And it's kind of like a what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a compound effect. It's like a ripple effect. So
Yes.
you build on elements as you go along. So and then they become
Yes.
one big holistic thing. So yeah, that's kind of what I say. But that point of difference, especially for financial advisors, would be, I imagine, extremely tough because for someone like me looking at it from the outside, I'd be like, well, what does a financial advisor do? Well, they give you clarity, peace of mind over your finances. They do a lot of the heavy lifting on your behalf. If I was a financial advisor, I'd really struggle to know what to say beyond that. But I guess that's where that's where you earn your crust, right? Because you can dig deeper than that and really explore something that would resonate with people and set your clients apart as well.
Yeah, so I mean, over and above what we've talked about here, there's like you, just I'm always asking a lot of questions around like why do you do why do you do what you do? What gets you up in the morning? What's your story about money? Like sometimes their stories about money are really interesting as to how they got into financial planning in the first place. Like some of them have some pretty powerful stories of how they grew up with money or without money, or there's sometimes something like that. And you know, they all have different ways that they work with their clients and different things that are important to them. I mostly work with lifestyle focused financial advisors, so the ones that are more focused on the lifestyle side of things. So
Mhm.
money to fuel your life rather than stacking gold bars. There's
Mm.
definitely different types of advisors out there, but I work with the ones that are more, because I'm all about freedom and flexibility. So I like to work. I find that. But it's the way their point of difference comes across in the way that they explain their personality, the way they explain what they do. And it's really interesting because, geez, we've done dozens and dozens of websites now, and they're all really different. I mean, the more personality that an advisor has, or obviously it does help make the messaging pop more.
Yeah.
And when they're more specific about the type of people that they work with,
Mhm.
that's always helps. So it's those layers of, the stories, the analogies, the
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
personality, the way they explain what they do. So it's so nuanced. It's like there's not one. I've kind of got a set of questions that I ask, but like you, and because I've been doing it for so long, you can kind of go, okay, no, what does that mean? And then what does that? And then you kind of drawing, and you don't really know where it's going to go,
Yeah. I
which is
like that.
which is the exciting part of it.
I really like that unpredictability, to be honest. That's one of the things I really,
Yes.
I was talking to you before we started recording about the fact that I have questions that I write down before I do these podcasts, but quite often some of the best segments I get are from spontaneous questions like the one I just asked. Like so it goes off in different directions.
Yes.
I don't keep it regimented because I believe that, if you have a regimented framework, you're going to get pretty regimented answers. And then subsequently you're going to get pretty
Yes.
regimented brand messaging, right? In your case.
That's
So
right.
yeah, so it's really important to kind of have that fluidity, I guess. So okay, we're coming on to like the sort of core component of this podcast. So we're going to come into the main question about why brand messaging should come before copywriting. But I want to take a step back for a moment and talk about how brand messaging complements copywriting. So how do you feel the two disciplines work in conjunction with one another?
Well, they go hand in hand. So I obviously originally, and I do still do both. So, there's kind of three. I explain to, if we look at like a website, I explain to people that, it's not just the website gets built. There's multiple steps to it. Like there's the message. So what are we trying to say? What's the vibe we want to get across? What are the key points we want to get across? What are the main pages it's kind of, I see the message part as, I guess, the strategy. And then, so if I'm mapping out a website, it'll be like, okay, this is what I'm trying to say in this section. This is what I'm trying to say in this section. This is what I'm trying to say in this section. And then either I will do the final words to get that message across, or I will give that to my copywriting. I've got a copywriter that I work with, and I give that to her. So then she takes that and then puts it into the final words. So it goes hand in hand. And look, it's just basically so you're not starting with a blank sheet. Some people, I think, probably do it all in one. Like, I think there'd be really talented copywriters that are sort of doing it, can get the words out. I just can't do it. It's the way my brain works, is that I need to work out, okay, what is it I'm trying to say in this? So I always call it the big, ugly first draft is what but it actually starts. So I work it all out on it. I use Miro. I kind of have all these kind of sections around the why, the vibe. I have all that kind of mapped out on a whiteboard. Then I'll bring it into like the website sections.
Yeah.
Like, and then goes copywriting. And then that goes to the designer, and then that goes to the website builder. So yeah.
It's a really all-encompassing process you've got there. I really like that. And also, I'm going to steal the phrase "big ugly first draft," buffed for short.
That's not that. I got that from someone else, but I can't even think who it was. I think.
So you stole it, and now I'm going to steal it off you.
I stole it, but it is. I have it like when I'm planning out, because I like project manage stuff. It'll be like, this day is my big ugly first draft day. That's my favorite day, because I find that I love working out what I'm trying to say on each page, and I break it up onto like visually. And I've got a bit of a fizzy brain. So I like to break things up into like segments and sections. So I use a Miro board. I don't use Google Docs. I cannot do web copy in a Google Doc. I have to have it actually like laid out in the page. It's weird. It's just how my brain works.
What I love on these podcasts is actually learning from people about how they do things, because I wasn't even familiar that was a thing. So I'm going to now go and look at that, and I may potentially move over to that at some point in the future. So it's always really useful for me to find out about different ways of working. I mean, you might think it's weird. I might think it's innovative. It's it's all good.
I guess you have to work out how your own brain. It's like kind of how people feel about money, right? It's just how you like to work. And it's in like Ainsley, who I do my graphic design with, and the lady I do the copywriting with, she used to do it in Google Docs, but now she's just got used to the way this works, and she likes it because it's really clear for her. And I even break it up, like I'll break it up into like little sections, and kind of then I can work out how it's flowing. It doesn't look pretty, but it just seems to work.
So how did you guys come to know each other? You and the copywriter, obviously you mentioned there's other people working in the background. So how did you all get to know each other?
So obviously all from LinkedIn. So Ainsley, who is my amazing graphic designer, collaborative partner, we met on LinkedIn. So I won an award one year. She congratulated me on that award. Interestingly enough, I had met her cousin previously. So it was just this kind of weird thing. I knew her name, and I knew she was a graphic designer, but when I'd heard about her, I couldn't afford to bring her into the projects because I wasn't charging enough to bring. She was, not, she's amazing at what she does. So you've got to pay for that.
Yeah.
And so at the time I couldn't. And then she connected with me on LinkedIn, and I was like, this must be a sign. Let's catch up. and I had 3 big projects planned. And I said, look, I need a graphic designer. Can we see how we work on these projects? So we did. During that, we launched Brandover. We just kind of knew instantly. We just went, she worked, because I have a specific way to work. I don't, it's kind of this intensive kind of method and milestones, and it's a bit different. And you kind of, not every graphic designer can work under those terms, but we both work exactly this. We're both the same kind of way we work. So we like connected. And then Kel, who helps me with copywriting, she was from LinkedIn as well. We met on LinkedIn. She connected with me, happened to be a copywriter, happened to have financial planning background. Like, it was just, yeah, power of LinkedIn.
I know, it's amazing. Well, we met on LinkedIn, obviously. I think it is really powerful. And, one thing I want to say, and this is kind of why I decided to go with this title, or we talked about this, and this is why we came to this decision, is that, like, there are so many copywriters out there who I think would love to work with someone like you before they get into the whole kind of, when I talked about the discovery call process, like I often go
Yes.
through a brand DNA with my clients when I
Yes.
talk to them, but I just pinched that off Google. Like, I don't have that background in brand messaging. I mean, I can certainly give it a go, and I do for a lot of clients, but sometimes I think it would be nice to have someone at the very start of the project who could help me out by saying, here's some material that you might find useful, and here's what I've got, and here's how it'll inform what you do. And then I'm just kind of like, I don't know, it just feels so much more streamlined to me. And I'm sure a lot of the copywriters who watch this will feel exactly the same way.
Yeah, well, it means you can focus on the storytelling part of it. So
Yeah.
you can build on what a messaging, like the messaging side of it, by then infusing the stories. So it's like, I'm trying to say this, here's a story that connects. And that's where a copywriter really shines. Whereas I am not, like, I've copywriting, I'm not terrible at it, but I'm definitely not, I wouldn't say I'm the best copywriter out there. There's much better copywriters out there. But definitely when you've got that kind of strategy, the message, the side of it, it means that the copywriter can really focus. It's like when Ames, like, it's like now when I work with Kel and Kel does the copywriting, it means I can spend more time on working out what's, like, how can we do this differently for this financial advisor compared to the other financial advisor. I can spend more time on the kind of the strategy and the plan,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I'm not thinking about the exact final words, that
yeah,
I'm not thinking, the finessed end of it.
yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's that's a great word, actually, finesse, because it's kind of like, I mean, I'm basically answering I mean, I pretty much answered or we together answered the main question, the main topic of the podcast in what we
Yeah.
said there, which is what I like about when I talked about fluidity. Like, I didn't even ask the question, but you gave me such a great answer. But I think what you do is if I've understood everything you've said up until now correctly, but I think what you do basically is you put the building blocks in place and you create that structure and that strategy for them then to kind of put it into words and have that finesse, as you said.
That's exactly what it is. Can we grab that? Because I can use
Yeah.
that. I need
Yeah,
that
the building.
brand.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, it's really good. It's really, really powerful. And I think, again, it's not something that I had really come across before. So when we spoke on LinkedIn and then we had our catch up call and you explained a little bit about what you did, I was like, I don't know many copywriters who work in conjunction with a brand messaging specialist. I've never actually done it. So I was like, okay, this is really interesting. We need to highlight this a bit more. And, hopefully off the back of this, you get people, messaging you to find out more and things like that. And people generally just have more of an awareness of what brand messaging is and why it's so important. So, I mean, because I think we've pretty much answered the main question about why the brand messaging comes
Mm.
before the copywriting element. I mean, is there anything you want to say on that before we move on to the next question that you haven't said already?
No, I think you articulated it even better with the building blocks and the framework, and then yeah, I think we nailed it.
Oh, good one. Well, to be honest, I have pretty much covered everything. I've got one more question on that specific area because what I want to know is how you work with a copywriter in practice, right? So, like, what does that look like on I'm not going to say day-to-day basis, but like a project by project basis or a client to client basis. How do you actually work with a copywriter in real life, and what are some of the results of that?
Okay, so I'll just talk you through my exact process. So I always do something called a brand spark workshop. I do this with Ainsley. It's a 2 hour workshop where we ask all these questions and we map it out on a Miro. We use the Miro online whiteboarding software. So we're asking all the questions around, you know, why and values, the brand vibe, their ideal clients, what's their edge. So like, what is it that's different about them? What they actually do, their brand style and personality. And we also want to understand what their end game is, what they're trying to achieve in the end, because we realize that what we're doing is, it might seem like it's just words and visuals, but it's actually so much bigger than, it's helping them build the foundation of their marketing. So we really want to understand them and where they're going. So that's in the Brand Spark workshop, and we turn that into what we call a Brand Spark blueprint, which is sort of it's quite a pretty document, but it's really summarizes what we've talked about. I then that and move to another Miro board where I set up the web pages. So from that Brand Spark workshop, we've worked out, okay, this is the site plan. So then I set up like all the pages, lay out all the pages on a electronic whiteboard. And from that Brand Spark and everything that we've talked about, I'll then go and map out the sections of each of the pages. So, you know, what the kind of key points I want to get across in each of those sections. So, and I use a kind of adapted story brand website framework for that. So there's, you know, a stake section, an empathy and authority section, a plan section. Like there's different sections. I kind of have like a method to tell the story. So, and then I give that Miro plan with all the sections and dot points I want to get across on each page. I give that to Kel, the copywriter, and she then does. So she's got the strategy. She understands all the background about the client, and then she's got the key points we're trying to get across. And generally, I give her a brief as well with maybe some examples of other websites for the examples of voice or inspiration, and any kind of notes around words to avoid, because there's certain words, like I don't love the word journey, I don't like the word ensure, I don't like ensure, like ensure, like there's just words that that grate on me, and I'm like, we can't use those words. So I'll give her the do not use words list. And so so she's got all the kind of background about the client, she's got any kind of thoughts from me, and then the pages of the website that to finesse all the copy.
Now I'm wondering where I've used the word ensure on client copywriting projects. And
But it might be in England, it might be, and it depends on the client as well. But most of the clients, it'd be like me. I would just wouldn't use that word in everyday language. So I always like the copy to reflect pretty much exactly how the client talks.
yeah,
So
exactly.
that's why it's not inside. I'd say some British people would find it quite like the way I kind of like the English language is used, but it's in Australia, like the way we say things, I want that to be
Oh, it's brilliant.
how I want it to. What I want is literally a seamless experience from when someone finds the advisor online and sees them on their website to then when they meet them in person. I just want it to be like, I already know you.
I mean, it's so true because, like, I mean, you know, whenever I write copy, one of the first things I think to myself is, would I say this out loud? To me, it doesn't matter who I write for. Like, if I'm writing a press release or whatever,
Yes.
doing a blog post, landing page copy, like I've gone on about this before, and there's another copywriter who I follow called Martin Sayers who says this a lot on LinkedIn. But like, when you see press releases or any kind of copy that says we are delighted to announce, or I always put this
Oh,
out, we are passionate
we are
about this.
thrilled. Yes,
Yeah, we are
we're
thrilled. We are passionate.
thrilled
We
and
are
honoured.
dynamic. We are purpose driven, unlike all those businesses around the world that clearly have no fucking purpose whatsoever. You know, results orientated. Like, it's just, you read some of it and you just want to be sick. And you think you would never sit in the pub with your mates and go, I am thrilled to announce that I am passionate about financial advice. I'm sure that there are people that have passionate about it, but
No, so you won't passionate. I avoid as like there's these words that I also use the first person. So if I'm doing the bios, it'll always be I, not
yeah,
like, John Neil did this.
yeah,
That's the way but that's kind of the vibe we go for. And it doesn't necessarily suit everyone. Like that conversational vibe doesn't suit all types of financial advisors. So, but there are the ones that we work with, it certainly does suit them because money is such a personal, emotional thing. And essentially if someone's letting you into their life, it's like, getting undressed for a skin check. Like what advisors have to do in terms of like they know more about people than people know about themselves, really. So people need to trust them like a family member. So they need to be able to talk to them
yeah.
and
Well, yeah.
like that.
You used the word, I think you used the word empathy before in relation to your process.
Oh yes.
Yeah, that was so important to me because I think that having empathy in the context of a financial advice firm is infinitely more powerful than a website that looks like it was designed 20 years ago and everyone's in a suit and there's no first person pronouns, as you said. It's all we and us, and we are great at this and we're great at that. There's no empathy at all. So the fact that that's a core part of your process, I found really interesting.
Yeah, and where you're saying we, yeah, and it's a lot of you. So we like talking more, the majority, apart from like bio pages and stuff, a lot of it's more around the client. So, trying like you're trying, you'd like to be here, but this is getting in the way. We can help you. Like there's a lot of you. So then when the person reading it is, hopefully seeing themselves in the messaging.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one final observation from me on what you said. I think that Miro sounds like a lifesaver. Honestly, it's
Oh,
so
it
good.
is. It is. I check it out. It's. I can't live with. I can't live without Miro. So I do all my. Yeah, I think it's the way my brain works as well because I need to visualize things. So just a great way to map things out, and clients can put feedback on there as well, kind of like you can do in Google Docs as well. But they can add their post-it notes and stuff, and it kind of you can collaborate with clients.
Mhm. That's great.
Yeah.
That sounds like a really good tool. So now I need you to get your crystal ball out and predict the future for me. So brand messaging, how do you see that evolving or changing in the years to come? And I guess kind of bolted onto that, here's another two in one question from me. But how do you see it changing or evolving? And I guess how do you see people's perception of brand messaging changing, in the years to come?
I think obviously AI is going to have the biggest impact, but I think what it is actually with AI, the brand messaging side of things is becoming more top of mind, like front of mind for people because they realize they've got to, even if they're, you know, pumping prompts into ChatGPT, it's actually the brand messaging prompts that need to go in there that are going to make the difference to what comes out. So I think it'll be that because it's the stories, it's the analogies, it's the key points, it's really understanding the client and your own business to then get the AI to make it sound unique for you. So I think AI will have the biggest impact, but I think it will actually make brand messaging um, more relevant to to everyone, to business owners and to copywriters, to make sure what comes out is more potent and relevant because we don't everything's starting to sound very noisy. I mean, you can smell a chat GPT pump, you can smell it. Like
Yeah.
you see a LinkedIn post and you're like, if I see another, person with the I'm thrilled with, and then like keep, like you can just smell it. So it's the actually like stepping back and working out what your brand message is going to be the edge that companies have in their marketing.
I just, do you know what? I love how like being an authentic human is almost like a rare commodity nowadays. It's like it's almost become a
Well, that's
really valued thing. And like 10 years ago, although to be fair, I say 10 years ago, 10 years ago, LinkedIn was a real shit show in its own way. And Joe and I
Yes.
covered, um, you know, how kind of robotic it was. The irony is nowadays things are more robotic, but actually to be human is more valuable. And you don't think that should be such a special thing, but it turns out
Well,
that
that's actually what you've said it, the authenticity. And I mean, I'm sure that AI, it's pretty clever, but you still need to put that like your authenticity into it to get the final. So I think it's that strategic piece becomes even more important if you want to have an edge, because now it's so obvious when things are written by the robots.
absolutely. Well, I've always said this, you know, with AI, like, and I'm going a little bit off piece here by saying this, but I've always felt that I guess there's two areas really where people can use it to their advantage and really forge a career for themselves in doing this. It's like the prompt you give it and then the conversation you have with it. So the quality
Yes.
prompt, but then not just taking the prompt at face value. Where most people fall down is that first step of like, okay, I've put in a prompt.
Yes.
They don't even know if the prompt's any good because no one's critiquing it, but they put the prompt in, they get a response,
No.
but it might be okay. But then that response will be an amalgamation of what someone has already written, a human has already written, because at the moment that's
Yes.
what GPT does. It basically takes what's on
Yes. Matt,
search
yeah.
engines, most of which, you know, if you're going back 10, 15, 20 years, has been created by a human. But then also it will throw in its own sprinkling of very questionable angles and statistics. And that's where most people fall down because they will not question that. It's like, where did you get this from? I've asked ChatGPT that loads of times, and then it will say, unfortunately, I could not find a source for this statistic. And I'm like, why are you telling me that then? So, or, you know, why are
Yes.
you giving me this back? So I guess that those are the two areas where people will really need to sort of grasp in order to stand out, really, with AI.
Yeah, and I think, look, AI is a great thing. It definitely means that you can focus on that really, like, it means that you can focus on the brand messaging side of things, because in the end, you should be able to get the actual words out if you can work out what you're trying to say. It's that part of it that's going to be the magic part, is that real strategic side of it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's actually like the AI is a good thing, because if people get it right, then they you know they get to focus more on the strategic stuff, which is the fun stuff, and that's the
Yeah.
stuff that is the point of difference.
But like the one thing I'm thinking of as you're saying that is how different is it going to be? So let's say you have company A and company B. So company A is a financial advisor firm, could be like a firm of one or multiple people, and they think, I don't need a copywriter, I can do this all myself. I'll feed in a prompt to ChatGPT or Bard or Gemini, other AI tools are available, you know, and whatever prompt I get back, that's what I'll use as the copy, versus your approach where not only are you kind of like you know how to use AI and everything, but then also you then know how to validate what it gives you. You are then working
Yes.
like you've got your brand messaging head on, and you're working with a copywriter, you're working with a designer, you're working with all these other people. Like, how much better and how much like more viable is business B compared to business A? Because there's a lot of business A's out there, but like you think of like what you're doing is not only the sort of framework where like say what I do, where I might go to a company and I'll try and eke out their brand messaging myself, and I think I do a reasonable job of it, maybe not as well as
I'm
you do,
sure you do a great job.
you know, but like it's just me and the client working together, and I use a bit of AI sometimes, but most of it comes from client conversations. But then you add someone like you into the mix, you've just got the complete package. And as I say, business A is just gonna, you know, go down the pan, and business B becomes infinitely more viable.
Well, I think that's still do fine. It's still fine. It's just, if you want that next level of potency and personality, then it is difficult to do that with just AI
Yeah.
on your own DIYing. But some people, that's where that's fine. It's kind of like anything, like people can do it themselves, or they can bring in experts to, you know, make it more potent, give it more personality.
Yeah.
And, it's like financial planners. People could do it themselves, but people, like it's similar. Like, I work with a financial advisor because I need the accountability.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know it all. I could do it myself, but I need the accountability. And that's what, that's what you that's what you pay for. You're paying for that expertise, that accountability. And that's the same as what we do. People pay for that expertise.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right. I was probably being slightly hyperbolic when I said like go down the pan. They'll be okay. They'll be fine. But then
Yeah,
they'll be just fine, won't they? They won't be
they'll be
like
just fine. They'll be vanilla. And I always say that's they'll be pretty much, they'll be bland and vanilla and they won't be able to stand out. And some people don't need to. Like some people have plenty of clients, they're not looking to grow. And you know, that's fine. But if people want to, particularly now I think that authenticity and being human, ironically, is going to be the edge that businesses have now.
awesome. I think that's a great place in which to finish. That was amazing. Yeah, thank you so much, Lisa. That was brilliant. So where can people find you if they want to ask you about anything we've discussed in this podcast?
Look, jump on LinkedIn, Lisa Greensill. I'd love you to connect with me. And you can also go to lisagreensill.com if you want to jump into my calendar. You can book a chat there. And if you want to check out any case studies, you can jump over to brandover.au.
Fantastic. And I'll put all the links in the description when I upload this as well. Lisa, it's been an absolute pleasure. Get down to Byron Bay, do some surfing, whatever, make the most of
Nice
it.
day today.
Yeah. And thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Neil.
Cheers.